Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Sorry I can't be in person this week. We are going to be learning the next unit, the next topic, Tevillat Keilim, over these several next videos that you will be learning, whether on your own time, in our regular class slot, or in your own time. You'll be filling out the packet and writing in notes with the guided questions that are in the packet that I gave you. And then there'll be a brief assessment following all of the videos. So one of the most often asked and kashrus issues that comes up is not related to whether my food is kosher or not, but it's related to the issue of toveling the kalim, bringing kalim to the mikvah to immerse them into the kalim mikvah. Baruch Hashem, we all live in communities that have kalim mikvahs available for us. And we're going to be talking about that concept, which kalim require tevilah, which is a very common question. I just bought a new set of china dishes. A young married couple just got married and they get all of these new things off the registry. What requires kalim? I remember when Sarah and I got married just a short while ago that we got married in the winter, so we had to bring all of our boxes in the freezing cold to a kalim mikvah and tovel everything. And what about electric? That's a very, very common question, especially as it gets to summer. Do I have to tovel my urn? It's plugged in. What about my Foreman grill? I'm sure, all of those are very common questions that come up. And then in addition to that is, what about my Snapple bottle? Do I need to, my Snapple bottle, now many of them are plastic, so Baruch Hashem, we avoided the question. But if they are glass, do I need to tovel that? And why don't I need to tovel it? If it's glass requires tevilah. Why don't I need to tovel that glass cup? And we'll discuss background. We'll have one brief class on background, which is right now, and then we'll have 4 shorter videos with mini topics related to this big topic. Okay, so let's get started right now. I'll share my screen. Tevillat Keilim, thank you. We will make sure that you guys have these packets. What is the source for Tevillat Keilim? Note here, circle where the Torah says you must put the Keilim in the mikvah. Where in the Torah does it tell us this? So we're going back to the psukim that we learned in the previous mini packet, which is about Hechsher Keilim. The Torah tells us very, very clearly, after the Jewish people won the war against the Midyanim, Elazar HaKohen, who was a Kohen Gadol at the time, won the war against the Midianites. They came back with lots of spoils with gold, silver, tin, lead, copper, brass, iron, all these different types of metal pots. And what did they need to do to them? There are 2 mitzvos that we learn out from here. Number 1 is kol davar asher yavo ba'esh tavir ba'esh v'taher. Number 1 is we have to kasher the kalim. Since they were used for non-kosher from the Midyanim, the non-kosher needed to be removed from inside the pots. The belios needed to be kasher, the pots need to be kashered. So you either use fire or b'chol asher lo yavo ba'esh tavir b'mayim, you use hagala, depending on the type of pot it is and depending on the way that it was used in the interaction with food. But in the middle of here, the Torah tells us ach b'mei nida yischata, that we need to tovel these kalim b'mei nida, in the waters of the nida, meaning the same halakhic water that would be used when a woman immerses the mikvah for taras mishpacha purposes, is the same standard of mikvah we need, or water that we need for immersing kalim into the mikvah. Now, the question that is raised here, is this a mitzvah d'oraisa or is this a mitzvah d'Rabbanan? It seems like a slam dunk. No questions asked that this is a mitzvah d'oraisa. And that's exactly what Shitas Rashi says over here. Rashi writes, Ho'il gzeres hakasavu. Rashi writes, it's a gzeres hakasav. Gzeres hakasav means it's a decree from the writing, meaning it's a decree from the Torah itself, that it's a mitzvah d'oraisa to tovel kalim. And that is the opinion of Rashi, and that's the opinion of most of the Mefarshim. Most of the Rishonim hold that Tevillat Keilim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. However, the Rambam here says that it's not a mitzvah d'oraisa. The language of the Rambam is Midivrei Sofrim. Midivrei Sofrim, and then the Rambam uses the language of Ramazla, and the Torah hints to us this idea, this concept of Tevillat Keilim, and he quotes our psukim that we just mentioned. And Amru Chachamim, again, right? Amru Chachamim means the Chachamim said, the rabbi said, right? So you see like three hints here where the Rambam seems to imply that this is not deoraisa, rather it is rabbinic, and the rabbis learned a hint to this rabbinic decree from the Torah here. It's called an asmachta. So big deal, you'll tell me, it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Either way, I need to tovel my kelim. So we learned, and I hope we remember this, there's what's the nafkamina? Is there a nafkamina, whether it's a d'oraisa or d'Rabbanan? So there's one very important practical difference, whether it's a mitzvah d'oraisa or d'Rabbanan, and that is a child permitted to do this? This is the way some people express this. Can a child do this? What I mean by a child, I mean a child younger than a boy younger than 13, a girl younger than 12. The Shulchan Aruch writes, Ema minin katan al Tevillat Keilim. The Shulchan Aruch writes that we can't have a katan do this mitzvah. A katan is not allowed to do this mitzvah. And the Taz, or David Halevi, he writes the reason why a katan cannot do this mitzvah, because Tevillat Keilim is d'oraisa. And since Tevillat Keilim is a mitzvah d'oraisa, I can't have a child dip the kelim in the mikvah for me. This is important because, this is similar to like, I don't know, blowing shofar. That was in my mind. A child can't blow shofar on behalf of, adults because the mitzvahs are not equal. Therefore, it's not okay. However, the Shulchan Aruch does continue. It says, "Im tavlu fnei gadol." However, if they tovel the kelim before an adult, it'd be okay because the adult is watching them doing it. And if the goal is for the kelim to be toveld or toiveld, then that was accomplished. But the minhag is, in general, I believe that the gedolim do it in general. This, again, how often does this come up? So it could. And I'll tell you, when our kelim mikvah was reopening in the summer, that was I think the first time we opened it, we only allowed one person to go up and down and immerse the kelim and bring it up for the person. So like someone would drive by, they sign up for a 10-minute slot, they would hand their kelim to somebody and they would go down and immerse it. We had like a 3-hour slot on a Sunday morning for the whole community. So this was great. I was able to educate people. I got kids to do it, but only kids above bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah were able to do this mitzvah on behalf of other adults, right? We think, bat mitzvah, they can't do. No, this is something that they could do on behalf of the tzibor. So that is number one. What's the reason? So whenever we ask what's the reason behind the mitzvah, so what's the reason behind the mitzvah? The reason behind the mitzvah is Hashem told us to do this. That's why we do it. However, the Ritva has a beautiful interpretation of this mitzvah. He says like this. He says that, he compares dipping your dishes into the mikvah to a convert. For somebody to convert to Judaism, they need to go to the mikvah as part of their conversion process. So he says that, quoting the Gemara Yushalmi, that by dipping, the Hashem wants us to dip the kelim in the mikvah, because now we're making them into Jewish kelim. Lefi sheyatzu mitumasan shel goyim l'kedushasan shel Yisrael, right? That makes a non-Jew into a Jew, making them tahor, kadosh, holy, pure, through going to the mikvah. Also here, they made it the same way, like Tevillat Ger, to tovel the kelim, to make our kelim Jewish, right? Jewish food, kosher food. As part of it is to infuse even the dishes, the pots, the pans, the peelers, infuse them with kedusha as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful ritva. Good. Now let's go into the last part of this introduction is understanding what exactly requires Tevillat Keilim. Very often I get a question, I just bought a new oven. Do my oven racks require tefillah? What about my wine opener, right? A bottle opener for wine, which is a common one around Pesach. People forget they have one. They don't have one. It broke last year at the Seder. So does that require Tevillat Keilim? What is the defining moment? Or and this is a classic winter break question. You go to a place for winter break, and you want to use the Keilim that are in the, you went to like one of these, not an Airbnb, you go to this hotel where they have like the kitchen in the hotel, and they give you brand new silverware, brand new forks, brand new spoons, brand new knives. So do those things require tefillah or not? Again, they're kosher because they're never used before. If they're used, you have to kosher them also. So what do we see? So let's learn the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. You can make notes in the box adjacent to it. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avuha, Afilu Keilim Chadashim B'mashma, Hayeshanim the Libnan Kechadashim Damu Vilohachi Ba'itfilam. So first statement in the Gemara is, according to the Psukim, from working off the Psukim above that we learned together last week, the Gemara says in the name of Nachman, in the name of Rabba Bar Avuha, that new Keilim, meaning brand new ones out of the box, and used ones that were kashered, both require tefillah. Amr Le, next box, Kli Seuda, Amr Baharsha, the only things that are Kli Seuda, only things that are meant to be used in the consumption of food. If I buy a brand new metal candelabra to light my Shabbos candles, that is not something that I eat food on, or it's not used in the process of food. Therefore, that does not require Tevillat Keilim. It's not a Kli Seuda. It's not just a Kli that requires tefillah. It has to be by definition a Kli Seuda. So Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avuha, Lo Shana Ela B'Lo. So that's one unit. Now the next box. Rav Nachman again says the name of Rabba Bar Avuha, Lo Shana Ela B'Lo Kuchen, Ukamaisa Shahaya, Aval Shu'ulan Lo. Another key phrase. Only things that a Jew purchases. But if a Jew borrowed a utensil from a non-Jew, a new one, meaning an old one, you'd have to cash it. If I borrowed Keilim from a non-Jew, they do not require tefillah. Tefillah is only needed if they were purchased, if I own them. Okay, that is box number 2. That's topic number 2. Box 3. Box 4. Merashi. What about glass? Does glass require tefillah? Please remember. Please remember that the Torah said only mentioned metal, not glass. Only mentioned metal, not glass. So what about glass? Does glass require tefillah? Rashi says, Rav Ashi says a very key line here. The glass is similar to metal. Why? If metal breaks, all I need to do is melt the metal back together and it becomes one. I can meld it back together. The same thing is true technically when it comes to glass. If glass breaks, we don't do this because we just would throw it out probably, but you can bring it into a machine, melt it all, and put it back together and blow it back together and make it into something new. So Rav Ashi, and this is how we paskin, that glass requires tefillah. So we had 3 points from these 4 boxes. Number 1 is old and new Keilim alike require tefillah. They need to be purchased, not borrowed. And number 3 is glass, not glass and including in metal. Good. Now the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch adds some details here. And again, there are questions below to help elaborate. If you purchase kalim from non-Jews, again, it's new or old, even if they're new, if they're glass or matechet, metal, you can't use them. There's a prohibition to use the kalim until they're toveld. There's a misconception out there that if you use it once, you don't have to toveld. It's not true. And you, before the tefillah, you make a bracha. He quotes a minhag, which I don't think most of us have, is that if you tovel one kli, the bracha you make asher is asher kedishanu v'tzavanu al tefillas kli. If you make tovel more than one, you make the bracha asher kedishanu v'tzavanu al tefillas keilim. Right? Our minhag is to avoid, I think, we usually make kalim in general, because we're, even if you tovel one thing, because we say it's on, in general, it's on the institution of the mitzvah of tefillas kalim, right? So 2 points here. Number one is you can't, there's an isser to use kalim until they're toveld. And number two, the bracha is mentioned. Continue on this halacha gimel, we're skipping base. Kliates, wood, does not require tefillah. Anything made out of wood does not require tefillah. But listen to this following issue. Let's say it's a hybrid. In Gimel, we're going to talk about hybrids. Number one hybrid is if it's metal and it has, it's wood and it has metal handles. If it has chashuke barzel, iron handles. Now they have nice things like this. You tovel without a bracha. Right? Whenever there's something in there where it's a mixture, we're usually going to say, you tovel that a bracha. And now what about china or ceramic? Ceramic is something that is, ceramic does not require tefillah, kli cheres. It's called kli cheres. Kli cheres is ceramic or pottery or china, does not require tefillah. However, let's say there was a glazerite. Back then, they put a very thick glaze of metal on top of the china to make it easier to use. Do you need to tovel it? So the Shulchan Aruch, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch writes, you tovel it without a bracha. There's a big discussion today whether china, a mug, ceramic mug, does that require tefillah? So some say that you see from here that anything that has a glaze on it, that glaze is glass, requires tefillah. However, others argue that that's only back in the day when it's a thick glass. Today, it's very thin, and it's batel, it's nullified to the cheres, to the pottery or the china itself. That is a big discussion, and you need to ask your posek, your LOR, what to do about china. Number, hey, im shoel o socher. If you borrowed or rented a kli from a non-Jew, it doesn't require tefillah. That's our hotel example, right? If you can get new kalim from a hotel, they don't use, they're not kosher, but new ones, they're kosher, they don't require tefillah because they're not yours. You're like borrowing it from them. However, if you borrow or rent from a Jewish person who did not tovel their kalim, you need to tovel it without a bracha. Borrow or rent from a non-Jew, no bracha, no tovel. Borrow or rent from a Jew, tovel without a bracha. And last is yud. He tells you the method of toveling. You have to be careful that the kli that you're toveling is clean. There's no dirt on it or no rust, or in our example, even no stickers. If it has a sticker on it, you most likely, in many of the situations, would need to tovel it again, because the entire kli needs to have the ability to have water come into it. And if there's a sticker on it, it needs to be toveled again. And you shouldn't hold the kli very tight when you immerse it in the water, because then that part that you're holding tight does not get immersed. So those are 3 very important points. Clean, no rust, nothing like that, no stickers. Very often you may have to go back to do it again. You should ask a Rav. And number 3, don't hold it tight, hold it a little loose, or Tevillat, hold it tight in one, and then move to a different spot, and then you can make sure everything is Tevillat itself. So please answer the questions related to all of these things, and then we will continue in the next video. The next few videos will be briefer, shorter videos with these mini topics in the second half of this packet. Have a great day.